Welcome to the Royal Report. Our top story this week, the Brooklyn Nets are wondering, just like the rest of us, where in the world is Kyrie Irving? Barry, have you seen him?
I haven't seen him. I haven't been looking for him. But word on the street is he's looking for the end of the flat earth. Hope he didn't fall off.
Check it out.
What's up, Kings fans? I'm so excited to welcome you all to another episode of the Royal Report with Calvin and Barry. I'll do a quick shout out real quick to all my Sacramento Kings fans out there and our subscribers. If you are a Kings fan and you're not a subscriber, make sure you hit that big red subscribe button down below. The Sacramento Kings are 5-7 after falling in a close nail-biter to the Portland Trail Blazers on Wednesday night, fueled by 40 points by Damian Lillard. But it's okay, we're bouncing back. It's a new week, and here we are.
Here we are. On this week's show, Tyrese Haliburton's Cinderella story season continues. The clock strikes midnight on the Stockton Kings bubble situation. But we begin, of course, with the news that is buzzing around the entire NBA, the blockbuster trade involving James Harden, sent from the Houston Rockets to the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets finally had their prized possession in James Harden, but it came at an awfully costly price, sending 4 first-round picks, one of them from Milwaukee, and 4 pick swaps back to the Houston Rockets, including Caris LaVert, who was later flipped to the Indiana Pacers for Victor Oladipo. Also gone from the Brooklyn Nets is Jarrett Allen, who gets sent to the Cleveland Cavaliers. A lot to break down in this deal overall, but ultimately the question is, how is it going to work in Brooklyn? Personally, I think the Nets are in the exact position they wanted to be in all along. They finally have their three-headed monster that they think can ultimately compete with the Los Angeles Lakers for a title, but they lost a lot of bench depth. They do arguably have one of the best and deepest benches in the league, but to lose guys like Caris LeVert, Jarrett Allen, and they already have Spencer Dinwiddie out for the year with a torn ACL. I really think that Dinwiddie's injury is going to be felt even more now that they've lost LeVert and Allen. And as far as the three of them go together, I'm not so worried about James Harden fitting in with Kevin Durant. I am worried about him fitting in with Kyrie Irving. These are two of the most ball-dominant players in the entire league, and we really don't know how they're going to play together. The Nets so far this year have really built their offense around moving the ball and getting a lot of three-point shots up for guys like Joe Harris and Landry Shamet. The question is, are the two of them going to be able to play in that same style with each other on the court at the same time? Barry, how do you see this playing out in Brooklyn?
Well, I think it's a little too early to tell, especially with what's going on with Kyrie. But overall, I think that the Brooklyn Nets gave up too much in this deal. I think they gave up too many picks. They mortgaged their future for a win-now player, which is great. You know, sometimes you got to take a move like that. You saw it pay off for the Toronto Raptors. But I see a lot of similarities between this and the Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett trade to the Brooklyn Nets, what was that, 8 years ago. They mortgaged their future for win-now players, and they signed a rookie Hall of Fame point guard coach in Jason Kidd. I see the same thing happening with Steve Nash. I love KD, great player, but he's coming off of a very, very devastating injury. Kyrie's had his own injury problems as well. So I think it's really going to come down to whether guys like Joe Harris, Landry Shamet, and Jeff Green can step up and fill in that void. And we've still yet to see what's really going to happen with DeAndre Jordan and what he's willing to contribute to this team. I think the major winners of this trade are the Indiana Pacers, who were able to flip Victor Oladipo, expiring contract, for a young, promising guard. The Cleveland Cavaliers were able to pick up Jarrett Allen, and the Rockets were able to pick up a plethora of picks and a bunch of young players in the deal. So I think all 4 teams got better, but I would take the Rockets, the Pacers, and the Cavaliers over the Nets in the trade scenario of they did better in this trade. So we'll see how it all comes down at the end of the season. But as you mentioned, I'm most worried about the fit with Kyrie Irving. As many of you already know, Kyrie Irving has missed the last 6 games for the Brooklyn Nets without an excuse. No doctor's note, nothing. The head coach, Steve Nash, and GM, Sean Marks, have both stated that they have tried to get a hold of Kyrie. He has not given them a reason for his absence, and he is not returning their phone calls. This has prompted many rumors and questions about his whereabouts. As we saw just a few days ago, Stephen A. Smith demanded that Kyrie retire if he was going to keep up this behavior. It's really hard to tell what Kyrie's going to do. There's been rumors about his unhappiness with the Nets management and bringing in head coach Steve Nash, and also the possible acquisition of James Harden. There's been a few rumors in the last few days that Kyrie Irving is willing to sit out the entire season to prove his point. Calvin, how do you feel about this?
I feel the same way that I felt about Kyrie Irving before this story, and that is, I'm unimpressed. It's so sad that we have to talk about a guy who's as talented as Kyrie Irving is, but we don't talk about his talent on the court. We talk about the distractions, the antics. Ever since they won that championship in Cleveland, it's been all downhill from there. He has really just confused every franchise that he's ever played for since then. I really do think that he's ultimately going to be back this season and he's going to play with Brooklyn this year, but the problem with Kyrie Irving is you just don't know what you're going to get from him. He could come back, they could win 40 games in a row, he could put up great numbers, say all the right things, say he loves playing with James, he loves playing with Kevin, but then he could turn around the next day and say he's not happy and he wants to go somewhere else. Just seems like the same story over and over and over again in a million different variations. And it's ultimately the reason why, if I was an NBA GM, I would pass on signing Kyrie Irving. I think that the distractions far outweigh what you're going to get in the 25 to 40 games that he plays because of the fact that he's either injured or just doesn't want to play on that particular day. So to me, Brooklyn is in the greatest terrible position that any team has ever been in the history of the league. They've got 3 of arguably the greatest shot makers and shot takers of all time, all on the same team, and yet all you hear about is, do they even want to play together? It's just amazing to me. But we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, it'll be time to talk about your Sacramento Kings. We'll break down their previous week.
Like Shaq said, Kyrie, you only went to college for 1 year. Stop acting like you're smarter than everybody.
Fox going to try and go to work with some... He caught a couple of bodies.
A tough start to the week with back-to-back losses for the Sacramento Kings. On Friday night, the Kings fell to the Toronto Raptors after starting out with a quick 19-point lead in the first quarter. This was the first game for De'Aaron Fox back since injury. He was limited to 25 minutes, but he performed very, very well. A couple of things to note about the game. First off, Kyle Lowry was out. The Kings missed a big opportunity to steal a game without one of Toronto's best players. Number 2, Marvin Bagley played garbage time. This was his first time playing in the fourth quarter. Coach Bagley said he wanted to play in the fourth quarter. We're down 20, throw him out there. Didn't play too well, but he was there, getting minutes, getting time. Another thing to mention, the Sacramento Kings shot 60% for the game and lost. 60%. The Toronto Raptors, of course, scored 144 points, which is their record, franchise record for points in a game, not including overtime. So that could be a big reason to the loss. But the Sacramento Kings couldn't stop the 3, couldn't get rebounds. On Saturday night, they played the Portland Trail Blazers without our starting center, Richaun Holmes. It's always tough playing on a back-to-back, especially bringing the energy and playing with a team like Portland that is 4th in the league in scoring and loves to light it up. So as the Kings, you got to try and keep up with them. The Kings were down pretty much the entire game, and Portland never looked back. Calvin, what are your thoughts on these games?
Well, unfortunately, it's same old Sacramento Kings for me. What are the 2 things that we've said the Kings need to improve on year in and year out: defense and rebounding. And those are the two things that were the Achilles heel for them throughout this entire 4-game stretch. They gave up over 120 points in all 4 games. 2 of those games they gave up over 130. And they didn't rebound either, particularly gave up a lot of offensive rebounds. They're averaging in these last 4 games, giving up almost 11 offensive rebounds a game. That's just not going to cut it. When you already struggle on defense, especially defending the 3-point line, you have to secure the rebound, because second chance points are just going to kill you over and over again. And that's why we saw them lose leads constantly throughout the course of these 3 games. Aside from that first matchup in Portland, they had 20-point leads, 19-point leads. They blew all of them. The only game that was really wire to wire was that Indiana game. Great individual offensive performances from a lot of Kings this week. Richaun Holmes played great. That Indiana game, he had a career-high 6 blocks, 16 points, 10 rebounds. Harrison Barnes went for 30 in that game. And then in the most recent game against Portland, De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield combined for 55 points. They're shooting the lights out. They are doing everything that you want to see from them from an offensive standpoint, but they just cannot stop people, and that's why they're losing these games. They also need to cut back on their turnovers a little bit. For example, I would love the Kings to be in a situation like Portland is right now. The Kings are currently 8th in the league in scoring, but they turn the ball over way too much. The Trailblazers, on the flip side of that, are 3rd in the league in scoring and 2nd in fewest turnovers per game. If the Kings can be in the top 10 in both of those categories, they're going to be light years ahead of where they are right now.
Yeah, the second 2 games of the week was much more exciting as a Kings fan. The Kings brought energy. It was fun to watch. The game on Monday night against the Indiana Pacers, I had a great time watching the game. It looked like 2000, 2001 Kings basketball. They were passing the ball, they were running up the court, they're making shots, they're making the right plays. It was exciting and it was fun to watch. And they won that game. And what happened to Indiana? They went out and traded their best player afterwards. Because when you lose to the Sacramento Kings, it's time to hit the drawing board. As you mentioned, Richaun Holmes had 6 blocks in that game, which was amazing considering he was in foul trouble most of the game and picked up his 5th foul early in the 4th quarter. Another note is Buddy Hield started out the season slow, but he has finally seemed to come out of that shooting slump, scoring 6 threes in that win. And also, as you mentioned, lighting it up against the Portland Trailblazers on Wednesday night. Wednesday was a really, really tough loss. The Kings had 2 big leads in that game. They were up 20 at one point and 18 at one point. The first and the 3rd quarter were the Kings' friends. The 4th quarter was not. As you had mentioned pregame, the one thing that you have to do with the Portland Trailblazers is slow them down and stop them from scoring. What did they do? The second half of the game, they scored the ball. They shot threes, they made
Easier said
threes.
than done, albeit with Dame Lillard and CJ McCollum. But yes,
that is true.
Absolutely.
But Damian Lillard put up 40 points in that game, and he pulled them ahead at the end of the game, and they won the game. So a lot of takeaways from these past 4 games. I would have loved to go 2-2 or possibly 3-1, but you know, the Kings were in 2 out of the 4 games. They were really in it. They should have won both of those games, and I'm content with where they're at right now with 5-7.
Yes, we will find out. Hallie, heat check, good.
The coronavirus outbreak continues to have a growing impact on the NBA as a whole. There have been a total of 9 games now postponed throughout the course of this season, and many players are questioning whether there should be more games postponed than already have been. Joel Embiid is on record saying he didn't think that the 76ers should have played a game in which they only had 7 available players for that game, including having to activate 1 player from injury just to play the game. However, other games around them continue to get postponed. Barry, I just don't know where this is going exactly. The league obviously had to have some sort of plan in place for this, but now that it's starting to become more and more of a problem, we're starting to see players objecting to the new stricter rules and protocols that the NBA has recently put out for COVID, including limited player interaction on court, wearing masks continuously throughout the course of the game if you're on the bench, that is. And in addition, the Sacramento Kings recently announced that their G League affiliate, the Stockton Kings, will be opting out of the G League's bubble in Orlando. Monte McNair is on record saying he would prefer to have the full roster available in Sacramento as their number one priority, opposed to playing down in the G League, and they look forward to returning to Stockton when it is deemed safe to play. What's your take on this?
Another tough decision for the NBA to make. As we had mentioned in a previous show, they killed it with the bubble. No positive tests in the bubble. So far, we've already had 9 games postponed this season. The Sacramento Kings have only played 12 games. So they're not even a quarter through the season, and we've already seen all these postponements. And, you know, my biggest thing is I'm not really seeing a lot of consistency here. As you had mentioned, the Philadelphia 76ers had to play a game with 7 players. And I've seen other games postponed with 8 or 9 players available. So it's really hard to tell what the NBA is thinking here. Obviously, they need to do something. They have changed and updated protocols and stuff like that. They've limited restaurants that people are allowed to go to and stuff like that. So it is hard to tell what they're going to do and what this impact will be on the season, but they have to do something. They have to do it before the playoffs start, and they have to do it before this kind of snowballs into having to reschedule games into the summer, past the summer. What's going to happen in the playoffs when players are out due to COVID protocols? It's really hard to tell. It doesn't seem like they've set an exact rule that they're sticking to. So it's another story to watch as we move on. Our next topic is Harrison Barnes. As we all saw on Monday night, Harrison Barnes is finally developing into the player the Sacramento Kings have always wanted, scoring 30 points against the Indiana Pacers and leading the Sacramento Kings to victory. I know 9 seasons is a long time in the NBA, Calvin, but Harrison Barnes seems to be a different player this season. He seems to be on a mission, and he seems to fit really well in with this young Kings team. How are you feeling about HB?
I'm feeling great about HB. He is in his bag, as Mark Jones likes to say, right? He has really impressed me. I think that he's become a lot smarter of a player over the course of his entire career, and you can really see that coming into effect this season. He understands what his role is on this team. Like you mentioned, he's a veteran leader, but he's also one of their most reliable players, and he has been so efficient for them lately. In this past week's 4 games, he's averaging 18 points per game. Doesn't take a lot of shot attempts, but yet he's shooting 59% overall from the field and almost 55% from 3. That efficiency is out of this world good. And he does seem to know when it's right to take the open 3 and when he needs to drive it to the basket. He's getting to the free throw line pretty regularly, and he's one of their best defenders as well. So he really does it all for this team. I've been very impressed with him, and he continues to have this kind of positive outlook on, like you said, a young Kings team. It's going to be very, very beneficial for them down the road. Another guy that we have to talk about, we've been talking about, but we still probably haven't talked enough about, is the rookie, Tyrese Haliburton. He continues to play phenomenally for the Kings. We've talked about it over and over again. He's not afraid out there. He feels like he belongs. And in his last 4 games, he is also shooting the lights out. 58% from the field overall and 57% from 3, while averaging 14 points and 7 assists a game. The guy has been simply unbelievable, and what I've noticed most about him over this past week's course of games is he's getting more and more comfortable out there. In the beginning of the year, he definitely wasn't shy, and he was taking shot attempts, but now he's actively looking to score, I think, and that's the biggest difference for me over the past couple of weeks seeing him play. Barry, what's your take on Tyrese?
Loving Tyrese. Want to order a jersey when they get back in stock. Hurry up, Fanatics, and get it. I'm a size large. Anyways, loving what Tyrese has been doing. As you mentioned, from day one, he's had confidence on the court, but he seemed to be wanting to get his teammates involved, which is a great thing, but we all know he can shoot lights out, and now he's finally starting to look for that shot. He's averaging 52% from 3-point this year, I'm gonna say that again. He's averaging 52% from 3-point this year, which is amazing, especially for a guy who was touted with a slow jump shot that might not transition to the NBA. He's top 5 in 3-point percentage this year. So other than that, I think he's brought a ton to this team. Leadership for the bench, energy, excitement, great passing, great defensive ability. Every time I look, he's getting a steal or jumping in somebody's passing lane. So very, very happy with Tyrese. One thing I did want to mention, all you Sacramento Kings fans out there, especially the ones that want Tyrese to start, check out what happened on Saturday night against the Portland Trail Blazers. It was his first start in the NBA. Kings got blown out. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to start in the NBA. I'm just saying on this team, he's better coming off the bench at this point in time and help our second unit so that we don't get blown out by teams like the Portland Trail Blazers. Another thing I want to mention, Tyrese, not sure about your nickname yet. Haven't really heard a good one, so let's come up with one. If you guys have a good nickname for Tyrese Haliburton, go ahead and drop it down in the comments below. And let's move on.
Foul, by the way, was the 4th Pacers foul. Haliburton, a deep 3. Wet.
That brings us to our next segment, trade bait. The Sacramento Kings are 5-7 at this point in the season. As we get closer and closer to the trade deadline, we'll have more clarity on what their potential moves might be. I know Monty McNair has prioritized cap space in the offseason to chase after an impending free agent, potentially a Victor Oladipo or a Andre Drummond, somebody like that. Calvin, I know there's been a few people that have been mentioned early on in trade rumors. Buddy Hield's one, Bjelica is another one, and a lot of Kings fans are talking about Harrison Barnes or potentially Marvin Bagley being moved. I personally, the only one I can see being moved is possibly Bjelica. I don't think he really fits in this team at this point. Haven't seen him play in the past couple games. Haven't seen him hit a 3 for a little while. But I'm really happy with everybody else, and I think the Kings need to keep this core intact and keep building moving forward. How do you feel about the team?
I think the core of the team definitely needs to stay intact. They have proven that so far. They're a young team and there are a lot of issues, particularly on the defensive end, that they need to make up for. But I don't necessarily think that trading any of these players, I don't see a trade out there that you're going to receive something back that is going to drastically improve their chances. I do think that there are 2 players really that I would definitely not be surprised if they're moved, and that's Bjelica, number 1, and Corey Joseph, number 2. Bjelica, like you mentioned, I don't see him fitting into this team long-term at all. They want to play fast. They want to get up and down the court. They do want to take a lot of threes, but he's more of a half-court offense, 3-point shooter. He's more of a set you up in the post kind of guy. And he is probably the worst defender on a bad defensive team. So I would not be surprised to see him moved at all, especially with the addition of Hassan Whiteside, guys like that in the front court. There just aren't enough minutes to go around for him anymore. Corey Joseph, he's played very, very well in spurts for the Kings this year. I think he's a great veteran leader to have on the team, but you touched on the subject of cap space. Trading him could help alleviate some cap room for the Kings going forward. Also gives more minutes to go around for Tyrese Haliburton, so you could increase or accelerate rather, his progression that way. So those are the 2 players that I really wouldn't be surprised if they were moved. I would be very surprised to see anybody else go, and that includes Marvin Bagley. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more questions from the Kingdom.
Guess what? I got a fever, and the only prescription is more cowbell.
That's right, we're back with Cowbell Questions. Let's get the first from our announcer.
Will the Sacramento Kings make the playoffs?
This is a awfully tough way to start the segment. At this point in the season, I'm gonna have to say no. This team is one of the worst defensively in the league, and while they do a lot of things great on offense, I don't see how they can overcome a brutal Western Conference to scrape in with the way they're playing defense and the way they're rebounding right now. I really hope that is going to change and improve going forward. I think it can, definitely. We know Rex Kalamian is on this staff now, and that's one of his, if not the main focus for him to help improve the Kings as a defensive unit. And they've got good athletes. They should be able to play good defense and rotate well. I've seen them do it in spurts. But the bottom line is the West is loaded. The West is daunting in every aspect of the word. So until the Kings can show me that they can consistently play defense, not give up 20-point leads, and not blow games that they should win, I unfortunately am going to say that they will not make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with you on this one, Calvin. My eyes are not on the playoffs at this point, but I'm looking for that play-in tournament spot. I think the Kings have a great chance to make that tournament. And, you know, all you need is a ticket. Once you get a ticket, the rest is up to you. I think we all know that the Phoenix Suns are going to be in the playoffs. Chris Paul makes the playoffs every year. He doesn't miss it. So it's really going to come down to what happens with the Oklahoma City Thunder, what happens with the San Antonio Spurs, what happens with the New Orleans Pelicans, and also the Rockets. I think the Rockets have all the talent to make the playoffs. It's just a matter of healthy. It's a matter of whether they can gel together. And if the Kings can jump ahead of those few teams, then they got a great shot. So, next question.
What's going on with Nemanja Bjelica?
What's going on with Nemanja? I'll tell you what's going on with Nemanja. Nemanja is on the bench because he can't play defense. I was a big Nemanja Bjelica fan last year. He started off the season so hot, averaging almost 20 points a game, making threes from all over the place. But this year, it's a new year, it's a new Kings team. The Kings have finally picked up the pace, picked up the tempo. They're running up and down the court. Nemanja simply doesn't fit in with that. So I expect to see him on the bench until he probably gets traded before the deadline.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. The answer to the question is there's not much going on with him, right? Because he's not playing. And he doesn't seem to fit into this team like we've talked about before. He is not anywhere near fast enough to play at the pace that they want to play at. He's a specialist, a three-point specialist. He hasn't shot exceptionally well from three this year. Guy's in his 5th year of his career. He's a career 8-point-per-game scorer, I think. And he is a matador defender for sure. He gets bullied in the post. He's too slow to guard people on the perimeter. Bottom line, he just doesn't fit on this Kings team, and frankly, I don't see many rosters in today's NBA that he does fit on in a legitimate role where he plays a lot of minutes. I think he can come in and give you quick spurts here and there, hit a couple of threes, but I don't see there being a long-term fit for him on this Sacramento Kings team for sure. What do we got next?
How are you feeling about Buddy Hield?
I'm feeling encouraged about Buddy Hield. It's no secret he was in a big shooting slump to start the year. I think he was somewhere around 27% from three.
Let it ride!
But those days are clearly over. He has finally gotten a few to go through the basket. The rim is looking like the size of the ocean to him now. Shooters are going to shoot, so he's going to continue that. But I definitely think that the confidence is back for him, and that's huge for the Sacramento Kings because when they play at a fast pace like this, they need to have Buddy Hield shooting a high percentage from deep in order for them to be effective.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about Buddy. Glad he's out of the shooting slump. It was a little weird there. He'd make 1 3 and then the next 3 would be an air ball or it would be significantly off where you were just wondering where this guy is shooting. So happy to see he's back on track with the three-pointer. I've always had confidence in Buddy. He is a shooter, shoot. I knew he was going to come back. My biggest concern with Buddy is defense. It's no secret the Sacramento Kings don't play much defense, and their biggest weakness is three-pointers. They cannot guard the three, and that is something that I need to see improvement from Buddy Hield. I need to see him switching earlier. I need to see him running out to the three-point line, and I just need to see him more involved on that side of the floor. So other than that, really happy with Buddy. Next question.
What is the biggest issue with the Kings right now?
The biggest issue for the Sacramento Kings right now is guarding the three ball. They just simply cannot stop the three-pointer. And when other teams are hot, There's no coming back from that. 2 points are good, but 3 are better. If you're scoring a dunk or a layup every time down the court and the other team's making a 3, there's no way the Kings are ever going to come back into the game. So my biggest issue with the Kings right now is guarding the 3 ball. What about you, Cal?
Yeah, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but clearly the biggest issues are defense, which includes guarding the 3-point line for sure, but defense overall and rebounding. Giving up offensive rebounds. Second chance points really hurt them a lot in their past couple games, as well as not being able to guard the 3 consistently. But it's also the reason that they blew big leads. They were up big against Toronto in the first quarter. They were up big against Portland. Multiple 20, 19-point leads just evaporated, and that's because they can't play defense right now. So until those issues are fixed, that's going to be the same answer for me every single time. That's all the time we have for questions. Thank you, as always, for your submissions. You can submit questions for next week's show at our website, royalrebounds.com.
Let's take a look at the upcoming games this next week. 3 games coming up this week. The Kings take on the LA Clippers tonight. They take on the Pelicans on Sunday. And then Wednesday will be another game against the Clippers. Both teams have guards listed as day-to-day. Patrick Beverley, Lou Williams, and Lonzo Ball are all listed as questionable for the game. Great week of action for the Sacramento Kings. Hopefully they can go 2-1 or potentially 3-0. We will see.
Man, that Western Conference, it just does not get any easier, does it? My goodness. Thank you, as always, for watching. We'll be back next week with another episode of The Royal Report. Go Kings!
Go Kings! Thanks, guys.